Hello everybody, I'm Saumya Tandon. We are talking about public speaking. When I was in my first class, I decided to participate in fancy dress competition. And my parents were very excited because this was my first time on stage ever. It was a jam-packed audience, parents, teachers, students, and my name was announced on the stage. My name was announced the second time. Then it was announced third time. I didn't come. My mother in the audience was so embarrassed that she ran, backstage, and she gave me the worst scolding of my life, and she pushed me up on the stage. I went up on the stage, and can you imagine what I did? I cried. I'm not Mother Mary. I'm Saumya Tandon. And the entire audience burst out laughing. I was a laughing stock that day. It was so humiliating and embarrassing. And in my school, that was my identity. For years, everybody who saw me, they just made that face and said, "Oh, she's not Mother Mary, she's Saumya Tandon." It was so humiliating for me. It's unbelievable. I mean, I can still remember those days. Till one day, when I was in my 5th class, I went back home and I told my parents that I don't want to be that girl. I don't want to be that crying girl on stage. I just want to change that about myself. And my parents said, "Of course, you can do it if you have it in your heart. Just begin." And from that day on, there was not a single competition in my school till the time I was in college, which I did not participate in. Whether it was, poetry recitation, elocution, debate, extempore, I always participated. And I was always, amongst first 3. There was not a single annual function of my school which I did not host. I was the first one to get up and give the speech on 15th of August and 26th of January. And here I am today. I'm a television actor and television host who has hosted around 14 shows, acted in films and television, and I make a living out of talking and performing. Well, the moral of the story is that if a shy and introvert girl like me can make a living out of it, anyone can. So when we are talking about public speaking, when we are talking about performing on the stage, let's begin by talking about stage fright. That was something which I had to deal with, and that is a very, very common problem, and a lot of people, a lot of you must be experiencing that, that nervousness and anxiety. It can also happen that you must have actually blanked out when you had to deliver something, all right? The good thing is that everybody, believe me, everybody experiences stage fright. Not stage fright exactly. Everybody experiences anxiety and nervous energy. Everybody. All performers. Now what you have to do is that you have to convert that nervous energy and that anxiousness into something positive. When I experience stage fright, what I feel is that there is a complete loss of control on your mind. Like your mind starts wandering and your mind, focuses on everything negative. You start imagining all negative scenarios in your mind. Oh, what will happen if this thing happens to me? What will happen if I fail? Oh my God, look at that person, or look at this person. He is prepared so well. I'm not that well prepared. Oh my God, what if I make a fool of myself? So you are visualizing and creating negative images in your mind, right? Has that happened to you? And you also lose control on your body. Like for me, my lips dry up, my shoulders get tensed, and I slouch. I lose control on that, firm and prim and proper self of mine. So I can give you small techniques for it. But before I give you the techniques, I want to tell you that there is no replacement and there is no alternative to rehearsing and practicing the content or the material that you want to deliver upon the stage. That is the first step. Like you have to really, really prepare your material well. That is, of course, going to take care of a lot of stage fright. What you have to do to control your mind is that you have to do small meditation exercises so that you don't lose focus of your mind from the positive to the negative. What I do is that I usually do 2 minutes to 5 minutes of deep inhalations and exhalations and calm my mind down. The other technique is that, I usually used to clench my fist, take my shoulders up, hold it for 5 counts and release it. By doing this, you are kind of getting some blood circulation around the areas which you have made stiff because you are so tensed, and you are also kind of making your mind aware that you are losing control of your body and that you are getting control of your body back, and again you are trying and manipulating your mind to shift the focus from negative to positive. When I say that you have to practice, what I mean is that whatever is your material, for example, if it's a speech that you have to give, or if it's a poem that you have to recite, you have to understand it. You have to understand the meaning of it. If you have written it by your own self, then it's great. Of course, you already know the meaning of it. But if you are reading somebody else's poetry, a poem or a speech, then you have to understand what it exactly means. You have to really internalize it. Before memorizing it, you have to understand it and internalize it. That means you have to really truly understand what is the meaning of that piece, right? When you internalize it and when you are able to memorize it, it's only then you can deliver it in such a way that it is believable. The person who's listening to you, the person who's hearing you, should feel as if you are saying it with so much belief that he starts or she starts believing in you. Once you have memorized and understood your script, it's very important that the pronunciations are correct. I have lost one of my auditions for reading news because I did not get the pronunciation of a word correctly. I still remember that word. It was rapprochement, and it was written differently and pronounced very differently. I didn't get it and I lost that audition. If you have a word which you're not sure of, you can go on Google, and it's very simple nowadays. You can actually listen to the pronunciation, or if you are like an old world person like me, and if you have dictionaries in your library, you can open up the dictionary and check for the pronunciation. You should know that a full stop means a long pause, a comma means a short pause, a question mark has to be said in a way that it looks like you are asking a question. If there is an exclamation mark, it's an expression which should come across when you are speaking or talking. So all of these things are some things which you have to be very careful about. Also, you have to be very careful that whatever you are speaking is very audible. That means your voice should have a projection. You can't mumble. Hello, how are you? You can't mumble. There has to be a projection in the voice. That means your voice should actually come from the stomach. There should be a throw in the voice so that you are audible and you are clearly understood by everybody in the audience. So what's the next step? Well, the next step is to add some style to it. How do you add style to it? You have to add some emotion or humor. Now, I don't know what kind of a person are you. Are you a humorous person? Are you a naturally witty person? Or you like jokes? Or you like being a little bit more emotional? Or you like to use touching stories? These are the two routes usually. For example, I would really request you to go on the internet and listen to some nice, lovely speeches by Oprah Winfrey. I'm a huge admirer of hers. I think she's one of the best speakers that we have at the moment in the world. I completely adore and love how she uses emotions, how she uses her personal story to get the personal story of the other person, and how she makes sure that she reaches out to every single person. There is a very beautiful speech by Oprah Winfrey. Just type the best speech by Oprah Winfrey. She's, I think, addressing Stanford or Harvard, I'm not really sure, but you can still find out. That's one of the best speeches that I have heard on internet. Just see how she uses, and she strongly makes you believe in every single word that she says. So these are the two things that you can use. Another very good orator or a speaker or a comedian that I really like is Trevor Noah. He uses humor very beautifully to, in fact, even tell something very serious. He talks about his mother's demise, but he talks about it in a very humorous way. So people have different ways of communicating things. You can make it humorous, you can also make it emotional. That's your style. Sometimes humor really works when you are very stressed and when you are very tensed about something, and you just go up on stage and you start with something very casual and addressing the audience, and you start with a small little joke or some anecdote. It just kind of lightens up the atmosphere in the audience. And even if you want to use something emotional like I did here today before I started this conversation with you, I started with a personal story which was slightly light and about myself. It kind of connected you to me. You can do that. You can talk about your own self. So try that. So whenever you begin, you already have a piece which you have prepared, but you can also add a little bit of style and element by maybe adding a joke or maybe adding something from your own life which is touching or emotional. That's the way you can decorate your material. Everybody tells you to be successful, to do this. If you want to get good grades, do this. If you want to top your class, do this. But I am telling you that to do badly, to fail, to not get that first, second or third prize, to not be the first in class, to make mistakes is a very, very important part of life, because you learn from failures more than you learn from successes. Had I not been that girl who was a laughing stock up on the stage, I wouldn't have been here where I am right now. Had I not blanked out on that stage, I wouldn't have worked harder to be where I am. Had I not failed that audition of mine because of wrong pronunciation, I would not have put that extra effort. There's a very beautiful line that my father told me once when I was crying a lot after not doing so well in my exam. He said, "True magnanimity lies not in never falling, but rising every time you fall." You don't know that word magnanimity? Good. Look up for it. Find out the meaning and see if that pronunciation is correct. And why don't you learn that line? It's a good one. And I'm also going to give you a very small exercise. I want you to use everything that we have spoken about in this conversation to use it practically. So why don't you pick up any material that you would like to rehearse and deliver up on stage. Hypothetically, you can actually pick up any speech, world famous speech. That speech can be by Martin Luther King, can be by Nelson Mandela, can be by Abraham Lincoln. They have been great orators. In fact, you can pick up Jawaharlal Nehru's speech. You can also pick up any poem if you like. I love poems myself. My favorite poets are Wordsworth and Longfellow or Keats. Any poem that you like, or any other poet if you like. Pick up that piece. So what are the steps? You have to first understand it. You have to internalize it. You have to memorize it. Check the pronunciation. You have to get the right punctuation. That means your tone should be right. Your diction should be right. Your projection of voice should be good. You should be audible. You should be very clear. Why don't you wear something crisp and smart and feel good about yourself? Use a lot of expressions and emotions if you want to add your own style of humor or any kind of personal anecdote or personal story or anything emotional. Add your style and just be yourself. And why don't you just record it and send it to me? And let's see how you have done.